This month I wanted to talk about something that might be a little bit shorter. Of course, that never really happens no matter how many times I say it when I start writing these videos, but that touches back on something that pretty much never leaves my mind. I'm of course talking about animation. I've talked a lot about animation on this channel, and statistics would probably say that 90% of the reason you guys are here in the first place is because I talked about an animated series. But I wanted to lean back towards my Over the Garden Wall roots and talk about a show that I've been itching to make a video about since I saw the pilot. Oh, and also what the heck is going on with Adult Swim?
I'm Mr. Frog. This is my show. I ate the bug. I ate the bug. This is the end. I love you.
So recently, in my binge of just about every show I can squeeze in at once while also watching way too many movies, making videos, doing a podcast, doing school, and working 2 jobs, I watched a little show called Smiling Friends. I had seen quite a few people commenting on it and suggesting it, and even the fact that a YouTuber co-created it really drew me in, on top of the animation style that I really liked. And I ended up really loving it. It was funny and creative and wild, and the stories were each engaging, leaving me super excited to see where it would go each time. It had great character moments and visual bits, and really just overall rounded into a great show. But there was one thing I started to notice as I rewatched several of the episodes and had some time and watched some other shows, is how different it felt from its sister animation studio. I've watched a lot of Cartoon Network shows, including the aforementioned Over the Garden Wall, or even something in a more similar vein to Smiling Friends, like The Amazing World of Gumball, and there's just something that felt so different with Smiling Friends, and in fact pretty much all of Adult Swim shows. Now, obviously the content and the comedy is aged for adults, that's literally its entire thing, but it wasn't just the increase of content that I was noticing. It was something about the productions themselves and Adult Swim. And since then, I've been trying to deep dive into watching more Adult Swim shows and more Cartoon Network shows to try and compare and dive further in.
No eating in the pool. Tell that guy there's no eating in the pool. What is that, pimento? What is that, pimento cheese? What are you eating? What is that? Sir, what is that? No eating in the pool.
So, in order to talk about Smiling Friends in the way that I want, we need to first talk about Adult Swim. And to talk about Adult Swim in the way that I want, we first need to talk about how it started with its sibling, Cartoon Network, which takes us all the way back to the good old 80s, or rather, the turn of the decade. As a small advertising company started in Atlanta, Georgia, got into television, and after a while broke out of just being a local station and broadcasting to the whole dang world. Or at least a couple of the other states in the US. And in 1979, they changed their name to the now well-known Turner Broadcasting System. And they were ready to go to bat with the big boys. In the next year, CNN would become the first ever 24-hour news cable channel, and TBS wanted to keep up. They started trying to buy just about any small network companies they could, including Brutt Productions, and even started their own music channel just to try and compete with the then giant MTV, to more or less no avail. Soon it would be their time. In 1986, TBS failed to require CBS, and after they failed, they bought a little film studio called MGM, putting the company in extreme debt as they were grasping at straws to try and expand as fast as they could. And they ended up having to sell it back not long after, splitting the company up into 3 parts. MGM's former owner, Kirk Kerkorian, would get the rights back to the studio and the name. A company called Lorimar Telepictures bought their studio lot, and TBS retained the rights to all of MGM's films and TV shows pre-1986. Throughout the rest of the 80s, the company would level out some as it started to gain even more popularity and more channels. In the early 90s, they acquired the rights to all Hanna-Barbera properties after an intense bid with Universal and Hallmark Cards, and bought Cable Rock Entertainment and New Line Cinema. And in 1992, headed by Ted Turner and then Senior Vice President of TNT, another network of TBS, Betty Cohen, sat down and decided to form a channel to air all of the Hanna-Barbera cartoons that they had just fought for, of which Betty Cohen would become the first president of. I, of course, am talking about the Cartoon Network.
Turner Entertainment Networks proudly present the world's first 24-hour Cartoon Network.
Hello, folks. Welcome to the world's first and only Cartoon Network.
And it was a pretty big success, with the Hanna-Barbera cartoons still having rather large fan bases. But the head of programming for Cartoon Network at the time, Mike Lazo, saw a much bigger future for the small channel, a world beyond just reruns and child audiences. And in the late 90s, he started airing late-night uncensored classic cartoons for adults that were still watching after 11 p.m. Things like The Tex Avery Show, O Canada, Toonheads, and even Toonami's Midnight Run, the channel's first break into Japanese animation. And by the end of the 90s, 1/3 of Cartoon Network's audience was adults. And with the big boom of adult-oriented cartoons like The Simpsons and Family Guy, Mike looked into having Cartoon Network's own original programming. The problem was they had pretty much no budget. Throughout the 80s and 90s, TBS did almost nothing but buy and expand and buy, and although it did lead them to being one of the biggest TV networks in the country, in terms of money to burn, they wouldn't see much until the next couple of decades as the company stabilized. And the small animation channel running nothing but shows that were already made, of course had no real budget, especially to make a whole animated series. But that wouldn't stop them. Mike came to Andy Merrill and Jay Edwards with the idea, who also worked in programming for Cartoon Network, as they were brainstorming name ideas for a marathon they were going to run of one of their older Hanna-Barbera shows from the 60s, Space Ghost. And they were looking for name ideas that rhymed with ghosts, and somehow or other the three of them, with his conversation, ended up coming up with a show idea called Space Ghost Coast to Coast, an idea to use the old animation cells from Space Ghost and repurpose them for a talk show style program that would bring in celebrities that would be interviewed for a more adult-oriented crowd. Edward and editor Ned Hastings used non-linear editing tech and the cheapest animation they could possibly make, with 90% volunteer workers, to create the show and its iconic stiff movements and weirdly placed poses that would actually end up playing more into its dry humor. The series would premiere on April 15th, 1994, and it took off hard. They ended up getting bigger and bigger celebrities and voice actors and music groups, and as they got more of a budget and time, they played with even more of the wide cast of Space Ghost characters, and played with the glitches and stilted animation and even breaking the fourth wall, leading it to be one of the most iconic, influential, and experimental beloved Cartoon Network and Adult Swim classics to this day.
Now that's a lot of S's. S. S. Sibilance. Sibilance. Sibilance.
And with its success, in December of 2000, the studio that was formed to make Space Ghost Coast to Coast, Williams Street Studios, dropped the pilot of 5 unannounced TV shows using the same style of recycled animation cells: C-Lab 2021, Harvey Birdman Attorney at Law, The Brack Show, and one of their most well-known shows, Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Several creators had come to Mike after Space Ghost pitching ideas for shows with similar styles, and he came up with the idea of not just adult-oriented shows playing after 11 on Cartoon Network, but an entire adult-themed block. Several names got thrown around, and on June of 2001, Adult Swim would officially start.
An empty pool. No diving. No diving.
What's the first thing you think of when I say Adult Swim? A lot of things come to mind for me, from their revolutionary and experimental original programming, their weird and trippy bumpers, all the artists who got their start on it, their weird and sometimes controversial marketing, their fans, or even their reruns, which I actually want to talk a little bit about. See, from day one, Adult Swim wasn't just making originals. Both Cartoon Network and Adult Swim were literally born from reruns, starting with those Hanna-Barbera cartoons. And with Adult Swim sticking to form, instead of getting beloved classics to air on their channel, they got several adult-themed shows that had been cancelled, starting with Home Movies, the first show to air on Adult Swim officially. It had originally been cancelled after only 5 episodes due to low ratings, but they readily picked it up. Linda Semensky, Cartoon Network Adult Swim executive, said, "We had a bunch of episodes to screen for Mike, and by only the 2nd episode he yelled, 'Buy it.' They had faith in shows even if really no one else did, and it ended up taking off like it never did before, getting several more seasons, and season 1 still being, in my opinion, one of the funniest shows in their catalog."
Look at my arm right there. See that?
Yeah.
I got that when I was 18 years old. I'll tell you something.
Yeah.
I regret it, because this tattoo don't come off.
Right.
Now, I have a tattoo of a cow's head because I love that cheese then. So I get the cow, I go in there, I'm a little drunk, and I say, "Give me that cow head from that cheese, I love that cheese."
Uh-huh.
Now I have a cheese cow on my arm, Brendan. Don't get a tattoo. That's what I'm telling you.
Okay.
Play soccer.
But Mike was even more ambitious with his new block. Adult Swim wasn't just a normal programming block, it really truly felt like it was creating a culture of its own. Like the revolutionary MTV before it, it struck a nerve with the new generation, giving the underdog shows and the new creators a voice. It was building up steam, and tons of teens and adults would claim it to be the only channel they would watch. And Mike had another idea to bring in more people and to do something that no other channel was doing at the time. He wanted to go back to Toonami and bring anime to Adult Swim's audience. American audiences didn't see much of anime still at this time. A lot of the popular anime in America, which wasn't much, was themed more for kids, like Speed Racer or Astro Boy, or even something like Dragon Ball. They were all pretty goofy and comedy-oriented, which was only the small tip of the world of anime, which had so much more adult programming far before that style would become popular TV in the US. And along with Home Movies and Aqua Teen Hunger Force, the first episode of Cowboy Bebop aired on the first day of Adult Swim, making it to this day one of the most recognized and loved anime in America, even among the modern boom of anime. And even to this day, they're still bringing in more anime and more stuff originally from Toonami, bringing a Japanese animation to the Western world in a way that it culturally never had before. And as they kept growing with more of a range of original and non-original programming, they kept growing and feeling more and more like an unstoppable cultural force, connecting to modern technology and ideas of the world like no other TV station at the time. They kept bringing in more classics and originals and reviving more shows like Family Guy, which is now hitting its 20th season, and they brought it back twice, and Futurama after its cancellation, and getting artists and writers by interacting with fans directly like no other at the time. They would answer emails and hire people off of social media and start shows from YouTube and give voices to a lot of people who felt like modern television wouldn't give them one. An exclusive feeling place, unlike anywhere else on TV. They would have skits and bumpers breaking the fourth wall, referencing fans and art, and parodying the way normal stations run, or even Cartoon Network themselves. Their shows would move through different mediums with puppets and live action and different animation styles and artists and musicians and generations, and even reviving shows that Cartoon Network themselves canceled, like Samurai Jack that got canceled in 2004, never able to complete its story, with a revival 15 years later with a darker, more mature finale on Adult Swim. They were willing to take risks, and the cultural impact that Adult Swim had on both TV and at this point multiple generations of teens and adults can't be overstated.
So you just gonna bring me a birthday gift on my birthday to my birthday party on my birthday with a birthday gift?
Happy birthday?
From shows to bumpers to music to gags to Toonami and anime, at this point its roots are deep, and somehow it's still putting out new and creative medias, even in a time where animation in general has been struggling to keep its footing. Thanks Netflix. which brings us to April 1st, 2020. And keeping with the tradition, started so many years ago, they dropped several shows unannounced on April Fools, one of which being the pilot for a new show called Smiling Friends, and it took the internet by storm.
It's Smallmoo! If you want Smallmoo to be the 5th smiling friend, text Smallmoo to 555-0100. And if you don't, text No! I really don't want Smallmoo to 555-0100.
On January 10th, 2022, almost 2 years after the drop of the pilot, which had already drawn the internet's attention with its absurd dark humor, fun new dynamic, and themes as a show, the entire rest of the 8-episode-long season aired in one night on Adult Swim. This explosion of content, after so much buzz had been created from the first episode, as it was originally supposed to air weekly, blew up the internet on a level that something hadn't done since arguably Rick and Morty. At the time, and still even now, I've never been a huge Adult Swim watcher. I've pretty much never had cable TV, and when I did, I was too young and barely watched any Cartoon Network as it was. We were pretty hard Disney and Disney XD channel kids. And even after streaming got popularized, we never really had something that had any of Adult Swim's catalogs, save for the stuff that they may have rerun, like Family Guy or Cowboy Bebop, until recent times when we got HBO Max. And it's been all downhill from there, as I've tried to catch up on years of Adult Swim and Cartoon Network content. And even without watching much of either growing up, I grew up constantly hearing about them and seeing them advertised, and really getting to see how its cultural impact spread, even if I hadn't participated in it much, which really shows just how far-reaching it was. So, when I would be scrolling through Twitter and all of a sudden see a bunch of memes and posts talking about Smiling Friends, and even watching clips of it and the first episode for free through YouTube, I was super hooked and swept up in so much of the fan art and meme culture and just excitement around the show. I got to see people talking about the fact that it was a YouTuber that was co-creating it, and that a ton of animation pages I follow were talking about working on it, or the process of animation and the people who did work on it, and it felt so in my circle. I felt that feeling of getting swept into Adult Swim culture like I never had before, and when the season finally dropped on HBO Max, I sat down and watched the whole thing back to back and loved almost every second of it. Its use of multimedia animation, its insane, out-there comedy that pretty much always stayed in the realm of stuff I knew or understood in terms of cultural references, and its main character being so real-feeling, while also being insanely out there. In fact, the entire show, aside from being an absurdist comedy in the vein of something like Chowder, felt very real and down-to-earth with what they were trying to do with the show's themes, which was make you smile. After watching it and seeing the reception from my friends and family and people I know on the internet, and even bigger YouTubers like Shafrillis making references to it in some of his videos, it just made me really want to dive further into it and talk more about it in a video. In research for this video, I listened to a lot of interviews from creators Zach Hadel or Psychopebbles and Michael Cusack, and the love and care and really the mindset they went into making the show with. So much of its insanity of the show being based off of real ideas and concepts, and even some of the jokes stemming directly from conversations the two of them had.
Yeah, I was just reading about how the Renaissance men are coming in town.
Who are they? Who's the Renaissance men?
Oh, it just says here that the Renaissance men are coming in town, and by the looks of it, it's like super soon. It's like really soon.
Who are the Renaissance men? I don't know who they are. Like the Renaissance fair?
Dude, I'm just telling. Look, I'm just telling you what I'm reading here, man. That's all I know. You know as much as I know. I'm just reading off this thing. It says the Renaissance men are coming in town really soon.
Okay.
Like ASAP.
I just don't know what that means. I don't know what that is.
They were originally going to do voices to match the rest of the characters in the cast for the two main characters, Pim and Charlie, but after working several times with them, they found that they liked just using their normal voices for the characters instead, and how much it played into how down-to-earth the show feels. Its almost message that each episode tries to give is never really the focus of the show. On one of the hardest episodes to work on described by them, episode 7, Frowning Friends, they talked about how hard it was to not make it so focused on the themes of nihilism and pessimism, as they wanted it to more focus on just the good of the characters, and they felt like they wrote themselves into a corner, not sure how they were going to end the episode because so much of the themes resonated with people with the times, and they didn't want to undermine the fact that people really were finding it hard to have things to smile about with everything that's been going on. In fact, throughout the show, there's a lot of dark comedy in terms of depression and nihilism, even from the initial episode, and in interviews they talked about the fact that they never wanted to treat it lightly and act like the joke is the dark thing. They wanted the jokes to be a way for people to help get through the dark thing. In a similar way to how a lot of absurdist comedy often touches on darker subjects. They didn't want to be like the traditional comedy in the vein of The Simpsons or Family Guy or Big Mouth or South Park in terms of how they dealt with and made fun of social and political issues, but they wanted to connect to a little bit of an older style of comedy that is honestly just there as an escape and a release. The last episode of the first season, Charlie Dies and Doesn't Come Back, Psycho Pebbles commented on the scene that the devil is in his room and how a lot of other shows might have just played up how much of a disgusting slob he was, going over the top and super gross, but what they wanted to do with it is make it something in a position we've all been in, basing certain elements of the mess around the room on his own room, and how it got over the pandemic and the feeling of just playing video games that are mindless just to fill in the time that feels like you're trapped, and it all plays into how a lot of people have felt over the lockdown. And I know what you're probably thinking, are you seriously telling me that this show plays heavily into the lockdown and the pandemic? But it honestly does, and they talked about so on interviews. They created it and wrote it largely during the pandemic while they were all in lockdown. And they didn't want to make fun of it. They wanted to just add a silly solution to it. In the subject of COVID, they talked a lot about how it influenced different elements of the show. One of the biggest being a lot of the ways the characters interacted, they felt played into the fact that, especially for people their age, a lot of people forgot how to communicate in the same way. They started having more awkward and stilted conversations at places like the grocery store, not knowing how to make small talk and just having weirder and weirder interactions with people around them as a kind of social layer was peeled back through everything.
Yes, I called. It is I, Shrimp. That is my name.
And they wanted to make a show that captured that feeling in a way that wasn't depressing, but could speak to people and the way that they felt, and not even say anything profound or judge or make fun of it, but just make us smile at all the silly and goofy and out there and over-the-top things that happen. I kind of alluded to at the beginning of the video that I felt that Smiling Friends was really a great example of the key to Adult Swim's success, and I feel like it's the perfect encapsulation of what makes Adult Swim as a whole so powerful and influential, even through as long as it's been around. And I spent a lot of time talking about its history and creation to show that the reason I think this show works as well as it does and has as big of a cultural impact as it does is the same reason as Adult Swim on a whole has been big over the years. Its ability to give a non-judgmental voice to a generation that just needs to laugh, that needs to create, to give opportunities and to inspire and to just make people laugh and have fun. There's nothing particularly profound or powerful about most of Adult Swim shows. They're stupid and funny and vulgar and sometimes a bit too much for me, but they're made by and for groups of people to give them a voice and something to laugh at that they may be able to connect and enjoy with more than TV anywhere else. And Smiling Friends honestly kind of felt like that for me. It's a great show. I don't even find all of its jokes 10 of 10s or love every episode 100%, but what can I say? Each episode made me smile, and I reference them all the time. I've always praised Cartoon Network for the risks they've taken over the years with their shows. Take even the aforementioned Over the Garden Wall and the fact that that even got made. But Adult Swim is a place where pure young creativity is born, and hopefully will continue to be, no matter how stupid and out there it is. It's a really unique platform that's willing to do just about anything. And with this lack of restraint, creators are able to make media that truly touches generations and different times, and Smiling Friends really did that for me, and for my experiences in the last couple years. And I can't wait to see Adult Swim continue to grow and grab more creators, and hopefully stay a powerhouse, because honestly, I think each generation really needs Adult Swim. Everybody needs their own Smiling Friends. A show that at the end of the day only cares about making you smile.
It gives me great joy to see a pathetic thing like you being tortured.
Wait, you're happy. Seeing me get horribly tortured made you smile.
Oh, well, I guess you're right.
Oh, sweet.
I can cheer you up.
It's Smarmoo! You voted and we listened! This cannot be undone! Smarmoo is here to stay!
Thanks so much for watching, guys. This one took a while to make because, well, I was lazy and also I did a big work thing, and it's been a lot, but it's fine. And I really hope this video was worth the wait. I've been wanting to talk about Smiling Friends for a long time, and I thought this was a really fun way to look at the show. Definitely check it out. Support small creators, support animation, and I hope you're all having a good month. Breaking into summer, I'm going to try and do a summer video of some kind of summery themed thing, so watch a lot of summer movies, those are always fun. And just enjoy life in any way you can. And I will see you guys maybe this month, maybe next month, I don't know, because I'm releasing this at the beginning of the month when I usually try to release videos at the end of the month. Shout out to my Patreon, Robbie Grayway. Go to patreon.com/mgraywayfilms, and you can get some exclusive content, some early access to videos and to scripts, and a lot more. But I will catch you guys sometime soon. I hope you guys enjoyed.